it is very important for the left not to have power, because there's no example in history of the left, not liberals. I always make a distinction between left and liberal, where they have not suppressed dissent. This is my greatest fear is the suppression of free speech, because that ends everything. So if a Republican is nominated, I will support him. He turned out to be, in my opinion, a superb president. I'm not a fan of his.
Wow. He literally threatened free speech so many times. He wanted to arrest people for burning the American flag. He literally said that it would be okay to step past the Constitution if the election was rigged. Don't give me this phony bullshit that you care about freedom of speech or some nonsense, and then you go and unironically vote for the guy that was one of the most anti-free speech presidents America has ever seen, you buffoon.
Today we're going to be speaking for the first time, maybe not the last time, we'll see how it goes, with Dennis Prager. Many of you may know him from PragerU, from his radio program. He had a conversation not too long ago with our friend Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks. Dennis, welcome. It's great to speak to you today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Just to start, and this can be so quick and then we move on, just as a sort of sanity check, I've started to ask guests in this year, last year, the following question. Is there any way to accurately say that Donald Trump won the 2020 election?
Oh, I was so hoping he was going to say, I've been asking all of this question, okay? What are your pronouns? Part of me kind of was hoping that was where it was going.
The following question. Is there any way to accurately say that Donald Trump won the 2020 election? Just a simple answer if there is one, and if not, it's fine for you to explain further.
So I have a relatively simple answer, and I've given it from the election date to this day.
Yes, sir.
I am agnostic, which has satisfied neither the left nor the right.
Okay.
My colleagues on the right want me to say it was stolen, and people on the left want me to say we are certain it wasn't stolen.
Well, the thing is that it comes down to there's a part here about what isn't the truth, okay? So how we determine whether or not an election is rigged, you need to go through certain steps. There needs to be a certain amount of tests, metrics collected, etc. And when you have these tests done that have found that there was no evidence of fraud, and that even if there was fraud, there wouldn't be enough fraud to actually sway an election to that extent, then yeah, it's not about like, I'm just agnostic, bruh. It's that because you don't want to pick a side, probably because you don't want to piss off your right-wing side, you're more content, or at least it's morally okay for you to just claim to be agnostic, even though the facts are the facts, my dude. The election wasn't rigged.
And half of the right also wants you to say that, right?
Half of the right wants me to, I wouldn't say half. I would say most people on the right believe it was stolen, or that there was a good chance it was.
Wow.
I don't know what that gains us, but it's fair that you ask. See, it's funny. You regard that as a sanity check.
I do.
So, okay, so let me offer my sanity check.
Please.
Here we go. Can men be men and women be women, or something like that?
You believe that men who say they're women can compete with women in women's sports?
Okay.
I think
okay. A little bit of a twist there. Little twist. I wasn't completely spot on. All right, I guess I'll take the L. But hey, I got half right, okay?
Women's sports.
I think in a lot of sports that does not make sense.
So how do you...
Was that the answer you expected? Because you did a little bit of a look to the side there. But did you think I was going to...
I didn't look to the side because I took off my earphones.
Understood, sir.
I realized that I don't need them.
But this is a different topic, Dennis.
I'm sorry?
It's a different topic. Do we want to close on the election first?
Oh, well, you said you just wanted to ask that question for a sanity check.
Okay, and you're agnostic is the answer.
Yeah. So I am agnostic because so many things happened that were odd or unique. Like it was the first time that an incumbent president had ever gotten more votes than he did in his first election and lost. That all the swing states went in his favor. That 17 of the 18 counties that are considered bellwether counties went in his favor. Those who think something bad happened are not out of their minds.
Okay.
So this is the typical, because you hear like half of it. Is that true? That did Trump win all the swing states? Trump did win a good chunk of them, but I mean, Biden won Wisconsin and Arizona. He won Maine, and he won New Hampshire. Did he say that Trump won all the swing states?
18 of the 18 counties all the swing states went in his favor. That 17 of the 18 counties.
So it wasn't all of the swing states that went in his favor.
that are considered bellwether counties went in his favor. Those who think something bad happened are not out of their minds.
Okay. I mean, we don't have to make this the subject of the conversation, but things sometimes happen for the first time. I guess the question I would ask as a follow-up would be, did you see compelling?
But this was also the first time that there was so much hostility and division against a certain incumbent, right? So like Donald Trump is an incredibly controversial person. So the fact that he would get a bunch of votes, that he would get more votes than before, and that Biden would get even more votes, that isn't that shocking to me, considering how polarized everything has been recently.
And of course, people say, because I love to have people I differ with on my show, and so I read the left. I only wish the left read the right as much as I read the left.
Well, I try to, but what evidence was there in Georgia?
You probably do. I think if you do, you're atypical. But in any event,
yeah. What's the Georgia evidence?
All the time that courts dismissed all these cases. That's true, but that's the tragedy. See, if I were an America-loving Democrat, and
they dismissed the cases because there was no evidence. You can't just take a case with nothing. It's a tragedy that they dismissed cases that didn't have enough standing to be valid in court. Okay.
America-loving Democrats, and there are America-hating Democrats. There are both. But there are America-loving Democrats. If I were one, I would say, please, let us air all of these complaints. Yep. Let us have some type, as close as we can, to some neutral authority. Not rule on it. Just allow the American public to hear what evidence there might be.
Right. Is that why you just said that you think almost all the Republicans think the election may have been stolen? Were they just never allowed to hear that perspective? What are you talking about? You just said that you think a huge chunk of the Republicans probably think the election is stolen, and now you're saying we should just be allowed to talk about it. You're allowed to talk about it, pal.
And I'll add another thing. If one believes, and I'd love you to respond to this.
Yeah.
If one believes that Donald Trump is a neo-Nazi fascist.
Something I've never said, but we could maybe find someone who believes that. Yeah.
Well, okay. I believe you haven't said it, but it's not germane to my argument. Whether you said it or not, it's said often that he is a fascist. Excuse me. That he is a fascist is constantly said on the left, and so if you believe that, aren't you morally bound to cheat on his behalf? For example, if I were in Germany in 1932 during the elections that brought Hitler to power, I tell you, I would have cheated on behalf of any other party than Hitler's party.
Yeah.
Aren't you morally bound to cheat if you believe the man is a fascist?
You'd have to ask someone who believes that. I don't know. I mean, listen.
I mean, that's not even necessarily a wrong point, but I don't think it works like that as much. I think it's that. First of all, I don't think that calling Trump like a fascist is really very fair. I think that what it comes down to, though, is that Trump does have authoritarian and fascistic tendencies for sure. The election fraud thing is a perfect example. The fact that Donald Trump could not accept the fact that he fucking took an L, and then he attempted to undermine the systems of power at play, the systems that hold him accountable. The fact that he would try to undermine those systems is fascistic, because those systems are in place as safeguards to keep the authority in check. And when you try to get rid of those safeguards, that is a fascistic tendency. Absolutely. But again, having fascistic tendencies is different than this is a fascist. This means that if this guy gets in power, he's going to just start like massacring people.
We only have a half hour and we're 5 minutes in.
Look, let's talk about
I think what I would say is the audience can judge. Is there evidence out of Georgia that's convincing to them? Is your answer to did Trump win logical to them in any way? Let's let the audience decide on this section of the conversation. Fair. I'm really interested in talking to you about woke, anti-woke, cultural issues, etc. Now, you and I could pick one thing like cat litter boxes in bathrooms or, quote, men and women's sports or drag shows or whatever, and we could just talk about that for 25 minutes. But I want to zoom out a little bit because you've been in this for a while and I've been following many of the things you've said about these issues. Here's my curiosity. If you look at polling, if you're going to just reject polling, then we'll talk about that. But let's assume that we have some polling that tells us something that is relatively close to what the country believes. Record support for same-sex marriage today. Record number of people saying, I'm moving away from religion. Highest in the Roe v. Wade era of the country says abortion should be legal in most cases. 60% says we haven't gone far enough on making trans people feel welcome. Okay, I could go on, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. Do you feel as though this is a lost cause and the country has clearly gone in a different direction from where you would like to see it? Or what do you think might happen that would turn around this 30, 40-year trend of moving to the left culturally that I believe we are seeing in the polls?
There's no question we're moving to the left culturally. The first thing people have to do is recognize reality. You may or may.
True. That's why a lot of people are moving to the left, actually, Dennis, because we're starting to recognize reality.
May not be happy with it. Just parenthetically, I just did an hour of radio because I do a lot of hours that are not politics, and
Sure.
and it was about a subject because I'm writing a commentary on the Bible, and I'm finishing volume 4, in which I discuss on one verse.
Sorry,
Is
I
there
heard the Bible.
luck in life, or is everything God's will? I'm a deep believer in God, and of course I believe there's bad luck because that's reality. If you get a kidney stone, and I use that example, I don't believe God placed a kidney stone in your kidney. I believe that it was your crappy luck that you got a kidney stone.
But let me just dig it, not to interrupt, but I want to make sure we know what you mean by luck. Do you mean by, let's imagine the prevalence of kidney stones is 2%, just for hypothetical for our conversation. God created a world in which there's a 2% prevalence of kidney stones. You had the bad luck to be in the 2%. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. That's
okay. Now, why did God create the?
So is he going to say now you had the bad luck of being gay and that's still bad? Is that really what he's going to go? Is that where he's going with this? Because this sounds a little yikesy.
Kidney stones to begin with.
Because God did not create perfect nature. I mean, trees can fall, avalanches can happen.
Okay.
It is our task to fight cancer and to be able to live with avalanches.
Got it.
The human being wanted to leave the Garden of Eden. That's my take on the story. We rather live in a free universe than in a perfect universe.
Okay.
Okay. But I'm glad you went to theology with me. Anyway, the only reason I raise this is I am not happy to acknowledge the power of bad luck or good luck, but it is the reality. I am not happy that 45% of young Americans say, according to Pew, that they believe in free speech, but not for hate speech. It shows you how
What does this have to do with bad luck? Isn't luck just like that forces you're kind of out of control? Like, no, if you get a kidney stone, it's not necessarily because of your crappy luck. It could depend. It could be because of your fucking crappy diet. So God has a perfect nature, but he doesn't create a perfect nature.
Coherent young people's thinking is that they don't understand that the whole point of free speech is to allow speech that you can't stand. Okay, I'm a Jew. If you don't think the Holocaust happened, you're a liar, you are sick, you are perverted, but you are allowed to say it. By the way, you're not allowed in most European countries. You can.
Yeah, but that's hate speech refers to speech that is of a hateful nature being directed at usually a minority group again. Like, it's not just speech you dislike. But he's correct that, yeah, hate speech is covered under the First Amendment. That's true. You cannot be arrested for quote-unquote hate speech here in this country. You can, however, face other consequences for quote-unquote hate speech, which is where the nuance starts to come in. So think of it this way, okay? We live in a country in which speech is free. Now, there are rules under private businesses and whatnot, but generally the government cannot interfere or criminalize you for speech alone. So that's good. But yet, who then is going to hold people accountable for some of their speech? Maybe if somebody goes out on the street and they start screaming that they hate N-words over and over and over again, maybe that's covered under the First Amendment. Sure. Maybe that person isn't going to go to jail. Okay. So it's up to society to hold people accountable for certain speech. Because the government isn't involved, which is a good thing, it is up to society to, quote unquote, police speech to a degree. Now it's nuanced and people are going to disagree about what speech is good and what speech is bad, etc., etc. And that's part of the discussion. But it shouldn't be, should we just ban hate speech? What is hate speech? I don't like speech. Any speech I hate is hate speech. No, it shouldn't be about that. But rather, it's that because hate speech is free speech, it is now up to us to make sure that we hold people accountable. So maybe the guy who's screaming the N-word isn't going to go to jail, but you know what? We can all say, dude, get the fuck out of here. You're bothering people. We don't like that kind of talk. Society can also hold people accountable for speech, which is necessary when you don't have the government doing it.
Can be imprisoned for you are perverted, but you are allowed to say it. By the way, you're not allowed in most European countries. You can be imprisoned for denying the Holocaust.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm a Jew as well, and I believe exactly what you just said.
I believe you.
Okay.
I had a feeling you would, but just know your side is as opposed to free speech, as more opposed than ever any segment of Americans has ever been. We are living through the greatest crisis of free speech in American history. That poll is
How did he manage to just completely like derail the conversation into this? And where is this? What does it have to do with bad luck?
Example. Here's another one.
Okay.
25% of Americans aged 40 and over have never been married, as opposed to 8% in 1980. We went from 8 to 25% in 40 years.
Can we talk about that one a little more? That one
Sure.
I find interesting. I'm not 40, but I'm in a long-term relationship. I have a baby. I'm not married. It's a conscious decision I've made evaluating what is marriage in 2023. Is that the sort of contract I'm interested in? Do I need that to mediate my relationship with my girlfriend? Are there protections that I find necessary? I don't know that for me and for so many other people I know that are probably in the group you're sort of describing here, I don't know that it's any kind of moral commentary or a commentary on the nature of relationships, but more about, for most of human history, this sort of contract didn't exist. There was a period where it peaked. I think it was the 50s or 60s or 70s. It seems to be in decline. It's sort of a blip. I don't know that it's that indicative of the broader point you're trying to make, Dennis.
It's funny you should say this. I went to a wedding last Sunday night, and my wife...
Oh my God. Last week I went to a wedding. Okay, Grandpa, can you just get to the fucking point?
Just spoke to the woman who got married.
Yeah.
And they had lived together for about 4 years. And she said, everything feels different. And I always explain to people, you use the word girlfriend. So you'll just have to take my word for it.
Please.
That you would be conveying a very different image of yourself and your relationship if you said my wife.
I agree.
Oh, okay. I think that is a worthy commitment that human beings should make. I would like your...
Just a difference of like a social recognition? Really? So if that means, if that alone is so important, then why do you denote people's identity when it comes to their gender identity as far as society? You're literally saying that marriage is special specifically because it invokes a societal understanding of the term. Well, then wouldn't that equally apply for people when it comes to their gender? That because society has an understanding of what it means to be a man or a woman, it's even more important and valuable as to why that gender identity is recognized. And this sounds like you're purely talking about an aesthetic thing.
You have a child. I think that is a worthy commitment that human beings should make. I would like you have a child, I believe.
Yes, indeed.
I would like your child to believe mommy and daddy are husband and wife, not just boyfriend and girlfriend. It's better for the kid, better for you, and better for the world.
But why do you think then that this...
Why is it better necessarily, though? It's not. This is the dumb conservative blanket bullshit. It's just better for the world. It's true that, yeah, marriage, if you look at the statistics, can be quite beneficial for men in many ways when it comes to their health, etc. But no, not for everybody. For some people, marriage is not going to work out. For some people, they don't like marriage. Hunter, okay, the divorce force over here, all right? I get it. This notion that it's just going to magically be better or it's just definitely the better move is wrong. It can be the better move sometimes, and sometimes it cannot be.
Marriage thing was the sort of more prevalent status for such a tiny blip in human history, and now it's already diminishing.
Well, I mean, the Bible was written 3,000 years ago, and everybody got married. I don't know why you call it a blip in history.
What? And everybody got married. What? People get married back then for all sorts of other reasons. Children used to get married off. What are you talking about, huh?
It's universal. People got years ago, and everybody got married. I don't know why you call it a blip in history. It's universal. People got married in virtually every civilization.
Well, so there were also a lot of social pressures for that. I mean, this is why we talk about like the 1800s when a woman needed to be married in order to even survive society.
If we consider modern humanity 250,000 years, for most of time, humans were not getting married.
All right. Look, if I can't talk about pre-Stone Age or pre-Bronze Age man.
Okay, fair.
Okay, since the Bronze Age, people.
Also, just so you know, marriage existed prior. There are documented cases of marriages occurring prior to the Bible. Just so we're clear on that too.
Humans were not getting married.
All right. Look, if I can't talk about pre-Stone Age or pre-Bronze Age man.
Okay, fair.
Okay, since the Bronze Age, people have gotten married, and you know what? We've done better by every metric. Marriage makes a better person and a better world.
Yeah, what I see
This is just so fucking boomer right now. This is no nuance, and just boomer speak right now. It does not necessarily make everything better. It does not necessarily make you into a better person. If, for example, there is a massive societal push that you need to be married or else you are not even going to have success at all in your entire life. Like that might not actually be beneficial at all.
Is commitment between two parents and probably a fair amount of economic stability are really the ideal circumstances. But I think I don't want to get away from your broader point, Dennis, which I think is you're recognizing the reality of the situation.
And I'm fighting it.
And you're fighting it.
And I'm fighting it because I believe that graduating high school, getting a job, and getting married before you have a baby, that is almost the perfect recipe for a better life.
But going more...
This is just ridiculous, by the way. Whenever people say that, go to high school. Okay, so what if you're in an environment where you don't have good access to schools? What if you're in an environment where you have a single mom, so you can't do that? What happens if you somehow aren't able to get there? What happens if you get pregnant and then the person leaves and now you're not married? It's true that there are things you can do, or the ideal is a thing. What is the ideal? What is the highest likelihood of this happening? But what these conservatives never talk about is, well, then what do you do if that shit has passed? If you've lost your chance now? What if you didn't have a chance to get to high school? What if you got pregnant by accident after all, and the guy dipped and you're not married? Now what do you do? It's always just, well, you should have done. Well, what do I do now?
More broad on the other culture war issues I mentioned. You're 75. You've been at this for a while. Don't you think that maybe it's simply being lost? Or let me ask it in a different way. What catalyst do you think might happen that might turn this thing around so that the so-called kind of anti-woke side wins or resurges?
Well, it's a great question, and I don't have a perfect answer. I do think that the chaos of the trans movement, that people support the removal of girls' breasts when they're 18 or even sometimes younger, or boys getting castrated because they say they're girls. This has alarmed a fair number of people, even on your side of the spectrum. They realize this is madness. We have gone out of our minds. And
it's not madness. There's such a thing as medical malpractice, there's such a thing as people that will be diagnosed way too quickly with gender dysphoria and then get surgery way too soon. That's a bad thing to happen, but you also know that medical malpractice does not mean that the treatment entirely is madness or that trans people existing is madness. They're doing the same exact fucking bullshit that these conservatives do all the time, which is, hey, remember how the doctors are giving away antidepressants way too quickly, guys? That's a bit of a problem. That's madness. Depression is madness. Depression is fake. Depression is wrong. No, there can be a problem with the medical side of treating an issue that has nothing to do with whether or not that medical issue is actually valid in and of itself. And the conservatives always deviate from that. And then they start saying how it's concerning people, these surgeries, these operations, the medical stuff is concerning people. Fine, that's fair. It can be concerning if done incorrectly. Absolutely. There's room to have that conversation. A lot of the times, far too often, it's phrased that way, but it's really just kind of a defense for the ultimate position, which is, and this is why I think that trans people are madness. It's not an attack on trans people to point out issues with the medical treatment of gender dysphoria.
I know why we've gone out of our minds. I don't think you would agree with my analysis, but it is I could put it to you in one sentence.
Here we go. We've abandoned God.
It is a quote attributed to G.K. Chesterton, but we can't verify he said it. I'm only saying that because I didn't come up with this.
Okay.
When people stop believing in God, they don't believe in nothing. They believe in anything. And
that's complete bullshit. That's when people don't believe in God, they believe in anything. No, if you don't believe in anything at all, if you're a complete nihilist, then maybe you'll fall for anything. Maybe this is again, like, if you don't put your belief in my Sky Daddy, you see, then you will immediately begin believing that trans people are actually human beings worthy of respect. That time I called it. And no, I did not pre-watch this. These guys are just so fucking predictable.
Believing in God. They don't believe in nothing. They believe in anything. And this trans movement is the proof. I said on Bill Maher's show 4 years ago, right before you saw that, it's gone viral.
I saw it.
He said, oh, Trump lies. I said, it doesn't compare to the lies of the left. America's systemically racist and men menstruate. And he cracked up, the whole audience cracked up, and the whole panel cracked up. They were all laughing at me. And Bill Maher said, this is why it's gone viral. There are like 10 million views of this particular scene, where he says, Dennis, where'd you come up with that one? And that was 2019, the fall of 2019. And people go, what, you nuts?
That's a really great story, Grandpa. I'm sorry you got bullied at the playground there, but can you what's the argument you're getting at here again? So because we've abandoned God, now we think trans people are valid? Okay, what? Like it's just lazy at this point. I don't even think Pakman himself said he's 75. So this dude's probably very set in his ways. He's not going to change. He's kind of got his list of talking points. Well, we've abandoned God, so this is why this is happening, and that's that. But yet at the same time, why is it, and I bring this up pretty frequently, why is it that during like the early 2000s, the late 90s, early 2000s, you saw, or I'm sorry, no, it was the late 80s into the late 90s, you saw a spike of Americans who said that they go to church, strongly believe in God, and would consider themselves Christian, okay? You saw a spike of people like that. Why is it at the same time, when Americans were so into God, apparently, did we see school shootings increase at those times as well, Dennis? That's a really curious one, because they'll say that, I mean, he's saying this about trans issues, but they say the same thing about gun issues. Oh, this is what happens when we don't go to church. This is what happens when we stop believing in God. Anything bad that happens is a result of us not seeking God good enough. We haven't gone to church enough times, and that's why. But then why is it that when people believed in God at even higher rates, you still saw spikes of atrocities? Was that a result of not enough Americans still believing in God? It doesn't make any sense. Whether or not people go to church and whatnot can be beneficial. Going to church can be beneficial for fostering a community. It can be beneficial for your mental well-being. Going to church in and of itself is not a bad thing. But this notion that because we've turned from God, now we accept trans people. It's the same fucking talking point that you guys give anytime anything else happens that you don't like or disagree with. We abandoned God. But yet, when we didn't abandon God, seems like things were still pretty fucking shitty.
Who says men menstruate? Within 2 years, if you denied men menstruate, you were considered transphobic.
Well, listen, I mean, I'm glad to have, I'm going to be honest. I don't know that this is the most interesting thing for us to talk about. But that being said, I have said very clearly, there are some areas, if we just say the world of trans issues, there are some areas where I feel quite confident. Like, for example, when it comes to bathrooms, I was just in Spain. Beautiful country, terrific seafood. I recommend it to you, Dennis. The bathrooms are just gender neutral. There's a sink there and a bunch of stalls, and people cross in the sink to wash their hands, and you use the stall you want. Everything's fine. The bathroom issue, I genuinely do not care about, even when they are organized the way they are in the United States.
I'm pretty much with him, with Pakman here, of course. I mean, yeah, I've been to plenty of places that have gender neutral bathrooms, and it's never been a problem. Not to mention we have plenty of data collection now, which has shown that states that do implement these more inclusive bathroom policies that allow trans people to use bathrooms that correspond with their gender identity, not their biology necessarily, you don't see any increase in rape or assault or any other criminal behavior in these public restrooms. Because abuse, assault taking place in these public restrooms is already incredibly rare. So the notion that like trans women are actually going to just go assault people disguising themselves as women because really they're still men, like it's ludicrous. It's bullshit. Another
example that really just does not seem like an issue to me. People want to be addressed by a different pronoun. I'm going to guess based on what I see. And if I get it wrong, I'm not insulting anyone. If someone tells me otherwise, I'll kind of just do my best. You know, we can kind of negotiate these things. On some of this stuff, like a talking point I'm hearing a lot is so many trans people who go through gender affirming care regret it. And that's a sign that something is very wrong. When I research it, it seems it's under 1% that express regret. And for some of that.
True. The regret rate for knee surgery is higher than the regret rate for trans surgery.
And for some of that 1%, it's temporary. So I'm ambiguous about what is the right thing to do in some of these areas. I'm open to hearing from you to the extent that I judge you to be a good faith participant in the conversation. I don't know the answer. With some sports, you know, it seems pretty clear that there is an advantage to being biologically male at birth. It seems unfair in those cases to arrange it in a certain way. In others, it doesn't seem to make much of a difference. So I think that I'm very open-minded on this. You know,
just curious. It's not even a challenge.
Yeah.
Name me a sport where there is women sports where it doesn't make a difference.
Chess.
Well, apparently it does. Interestingly, I was just.
Oh no! Is he going to go that men are just smarter?
Reading that the International Chess Federation, whatever the name of the group is, noted that men did play chess better, generally speaking. By the way, if you're right, and I have no.
Yeah, but then why? Why did men play chess better? What? Are there more men playing chess on average? Like, what do you mean? Why? Why did they play chess better? Women just dumb. Okay, that makes more sense now, yeah. Psychologist and neuroscientist summarized the state of research on women in chess as, quote, there is currently zero evidence for biological differences in chess ability between the genders, but added that does not mean that there are currently no such differences. On the other side are those who argue the gender gap in chess is mainly due to societal and cultural pressure that put women off the game. A commonly cited example is Hungary's Judith Polgar, considered the strongest female player of all time and the only woman ever to be ranked in the world's top 10. Her psychologist father believed geniuses are created, not born. His 3 daughters, homeschooled in chess from the age of 3, each achieved groundbreaking success in the game. Oh shit. Uh-oh. So it sounds like when people were nurtured a certain way, they actually had better results. Is there any... Okay, in one study, researchers pitted male and female chess players against each other online. The sexes performed equally when identities were anonymous, but when the sex of the opponents were known, female players performed worse against male players and better against other female players. So it could have something to do with the stereotype overall. There's not really much difference. So, okay. Men actually were better. Why are men better? That's going to matter. And that study that they just cited was actually a really good indicator right there that women did equally as well as the men until they knew that they were playing against a man. And if it's the stereotype that this is more of a men's thing, that men are just going to be better, etc., then that could absolutely take a hit on your confidence.
No agenda here.
Yeah.
Then there should not be women's chess.
Right. So this chess is an
The
interesting
very
one
fact that it
because
exists
right.
suggests that there is an advantage to separating the sexes.
No, it doesn't. The reason that men do better is partially because of the separation there and because of the societal separation.
Understanding is, and again, I think we're both trying to learn here. My understanding is the reason that the women's chess division was originally created was not enough young girls were participating.
Okay, fair enough, but it's not a physical sport anyway, so it's not a sport.
No, I mean, listen, I don't know.
It is though. It is a sport, and now you're still like doubling down, taking the route that like men are just naturally better or something.
So that all right, no, but you said where it doesn't matter. But if it doesn't matter, there would be no reason for women's whatever it is, track, field, weightlifting, tennis. But apparently there is a difference. A male who said he's a female won in Canada 2 weeks ago.
What?
And he not only set records in the women's division, and I am saying he because I think he's a fraud,
okay.
and a narcissist for hurting women like this. He lifted 250 pounds more than the first place woman.
Right.
I know you don't think that's fair,
no.
But on your side, the entire LGBTQ movement is unanimous in saying you're transphobic if you think that is wrong.
So, I mean, listen, a couple...
He's very much building this upon like a stereotype, these straw man arguments almost. Like there are some people, that are kind of extreme and are going to say you're transphobic for all that shit. But like you're talking to a liberal on the show right now, dude. He's not taking that approach. Like this is clearly not just some like universal left approach.
Couple of examples. Equestrian, right? I mean, it's physical. You're riding a horse. A lot of it.
Oh yeah, good point. He said like it's not physical. It's just a sport. Whatever. Blah blah blah. It's not really a sport. Good point. Thank you, chat. It's recognized as a sport in over 100 countries and by the Olympic Committee.
Has to do with the horse. If biological men who tend to be heavier want to compete against women, it doesn't seem like a major problem. Sailing is physical. You have to dominate the sail as you are being pushed around by wind. Bowling, I believe, is gender segregated. I don't know that it needs to be. I mean, darts is another example. I mean, these are just some examples.
That's a good point, actually. He's going to be like, well, you know that bowling balls can be rather heavy. Sometimes the spaghetti noodles that are the femoid arms will buckle under the immense weight of a 33-pound bowling ball. They should just be carrying around my 45-pound child.
So wherever it made a difference, you'd be opposed to it. So you are transphobic according to your side. Okay. Please understand that.
Well, but I think the point that I'm...
Okay, who cares? People call me transphobic still, too, for not respecting neo-genders or something. Like, who cares? He's going the route of assuming that this is like a liberal who's going to be like, eek! Oh no, they're calling me transphobic. Well, I'm not. Oh, boo-hoo. Because like he only has sort of this caricature of a liberal in his head. And Pakman's just not having it. He's just like, okay, fine. Like, yeah, people are going to call you fucking transphobic no matter what.
Trying to make to you is that there are many people on my side that are taking my view and sort of trying to figure out something that is admittedly not completely figured out yet. It seems incorrect to cast us as...
It's figured out in most cases. I mean, it's figured out for racing, for track, for weightlifting, for tennis.
Yeah.
It's pretty universally. I don't like it. And as I said, if there's no difference whatsoever, it is silly to have men's and women's sports to begin with.
And so you just listed a couple examples. I gave you 5. Fine. Sports is one aspect of this.
Right,
where are you on something like bathrooms, for example, and bathroom usage? Do you want like a genitalia check, or what are you looking for?
Dennis is like, I mean, if you're going to show me yours, fine, I guess now. Maybe we can turn the camera off first.
I think that an elementary school, for example, where a boy says I'm a girl, and would be exposed in front of the girls as they are in the case now of college swim meets, where if a guy says he's a girl, Leah Thomas exposed his penis to the girls on the Penn.
But Dennis, I hate to interrupt. You first said kids. In college, they're adults, right? So which are you talking about?
Right. Both.
Thank you.
Oh.
So I'll start. I'm just giving an example of where it does occur.
Okay. With adults.
I think that here.
You're talking also about someone in a swim locker room, which is different than using a bathroom with stalls.
Your anatomy should dictate in elementary school which bathroom you go to.
And how do you know their anatomy, dude? That's the fucking creepy part.
Elementary school. Okay.
By the way, I have no problem if when there is a unisex bathroom with one stall, anybody goes in.
Yeah.
That's I have on occasion where there is one stall, I have gone into the women's bathroom if I really had to go to a restaurant.
Wow.
And it was a little nothing thing with just one toilet.
Sure.
So I recommended to women to go into the men's because if my table was near the bathroom. So
very genteel of you.
I'm sorry?
No, I said that's very genteel of you. I'm sure the women appreciate it.
It's just common sense. I'm a big believer in common sense.
But so elementary school, it's a genitalia check.
This is, by the way, how far common sense gets you.
Your anatomy should dictate which bathroom you go to in elementary school, yes.
Okay. And then in any other scenario, should it also?
So if it involves exposure of your genitalia, it should be dictated by anatomy. If it does not involve exposure of your genitalia, look, as I say this tongue in.
What? Huh? Okay, so any bathroom, you're not usually exposing your genitalia, bruh. Unless you're in your own stall with the fucking thing with the door closed. Wait, this is the men's bathroom, dude. I always whip my dick out before I go into the stall. You know, I'm walking up to the hand dryer, man, wiggling that dick all over the fucking place, man. What, this is the men's bathroom, huh? No one exposes their genitalia in a bathroom.
In cheek, but it's true. If a man exposes himself to women or a woman, and she has not asked to see it, he's arrested. But
we're not asked to see it. You're not answering the question, Dennis. But no one's exposing themselves in a bathroom to other people.
Where if he says I'm a woman, then she could be arrested if she complains. It's a little weird.
Yep, that's exactly how it happens too. The law will arrest this person. What? Yes, under Joe Biden's America, guys, it is now illegal to raise any complaints if you are non-consensually, if somebody puts their genitals in your face non-consensually, okay? If that person happens to be trans, they are above the law and they are allowed to harass you, etc. But if they're not trans, then they go to jail. He's just making this up now.
Our situation. Why can't decent people just say, look, women are not aching to see most men's penises. Therefore,
True. So therefore, maybe we should have separate little stalls. Maybe there should be like a big bathroom that says like women or whatever. And then inside that really big bathroom, rather than there being just like toilets splopped all over the fucking room, they could each be in their own little separate room with a door so that nobody would have to see anything.
If I say I'm a woman, I will not expose myself in front of women, even though
no one's exposing themselves at the bathroom.
I think I'm a woman. Why can't someone be that decent?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I don't ever see any genitalia in bathrooms in general. You know, like what is the exposition?
Right. Okay, that's fine. Oh, yes, I understand that.
So that's not a problem for you.
So theoretically, a man says he's a woman and he enters a stall and nobody sees anything, then why would anybody complain?
Yeah, listen, that sounds reasonable.
Dennis, do you have a follow-up for that, buddy? Because you just made sense. Wait, Dennis, guys, Dennis just made sense. He just agreed. What the fuck?
To me, that sounds eminently reasonable, what you're saying. We can talk about these other scenarios.
The battle is way, way higher.
Yeah.
The battle is...
It's a danger to the women and traumatic to the children. One, do you know that such a thing as pedophiles exist? There are sometimes children or little boys that will use the bathroom in a stall next to a full-grown man also who's a pedophile and wants to abuse children and little boys. You know, that's can happen sometimes too. So should it be a kid's bathroom separate from an adult's bathroom? How do you want to do that? How is it a danger to women if the statistics have shown that there is absolutely no increase of sexual assault reports in states that have gender-neutral bathrooms? Where is the risk to women? You have none. You're going based on your feelings. Your father doesn't love you. Fuck you.
Battle is what we call so-called gender care. The removal. By the way, there's the 2% or under 1%, whatever you said, of detransitioners.
Yeah.
I believe it's as close to a pure lie. You're not telling it. I know you.
Of course he's going to say that it's a lie because it contradicts his little narrative. It's a lie because I don't like it. Exactly.
I read it too. There's no doubt in my mind it's a lie. There's a lot of lying on a lot of these issues because people feel if they have a humane agenda, they don't have to tell the truth.
Well, no, listen, I mean,
So he is saying that he's focused on the gender care issue, which again has nothing to do with whether or not men can be men, women can be women, or anything of the sort. It really has nothing to do with the validity of trans people. He's just talking about issues with gender care. I wish that David would press him on that and then say, okay, fine. We can agree that there are issues that sometimes takes place in the medical field. Sometimes issues take place in the medical field with treatments that are unrelated to trans issues too, like medical malpractice is a thing. That's something to look at, abso-fucking-lutely. But what does this have to do with whether or not trans people are valid or not? That's what I wish that they would have. That's where I wish the conversation would go a little bit.
I have proof for this. Virtually every European country has stopped this care for minors. This
isn't proof at all. Not virtually every European institution either. There was one major European institution which took a big step backwards, and it was based on, again, pseudoscience and dumb shit that has been now debunked. It was based on the whole gender contagion thing, the gender dysphoria social contagion issue. Sweden banned some of that stuff based on this junk science. They always bring this up. They think it's such a big own. They're like, yeah, they banned it all, dude. No, they didn't. First of all, they didn't even ban it. They just delayed it a bit and took more time off. They did not stop treating anyone. Exactly. They said they're going to look into it a little bit more and be a little more careful, which is nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing to do. You should be careful and be cautious with medical procedures.
England has ended it. Sweden has ended it. Denmark has ended it. Norway has ended it. And that's only the ones
But he lists all this off to make it sound really credible. But then when you find out that all of them have ended it based on junk science and that rapid onset gender dysphoria crap, which was so fucking, the methodology for that study was so trash that even the goddamn publication, the journal that published it, had to issue a correction and an apology and make note that this research was not actually up to the standards.
I know by heart.
So here's my concern about this.
We and Canada, I really apologize.
No, that's okay.
We and Canada are the worst countries on earth in terms of what we can do to minors if they say that they are the other sex.
I don't have that data in front of me, but let's just assume it's not even germane to the next part I want to go with this. Here's my thought on this. I also am not 100% on some elements of this type of care for minors. I still am learning more and doing my research. One of the problems I'm having with some of the claims that are made by those who I would colloquially say are on your side, I know not everybody agrees on everything, is that when I research some of their claims, they are lies. Like, for example, this is super specific. This guy, Matt Walsh, went on Joe Rogan's podcast and said that prepubescent girls are getting their breasts chopped off. Now, let's put aside for a second that prepubescent girls essentially don't have breasts. Let's put that biological reality aside for a second. And when Joe said how many, he said, oh, it's like millions or something. And it was like 900 people over the last 6 years or something like that. When I see such blatant distortions about what is happening, it's hard to believe that these folks are operating in good faith.
That's fair.
I have no comment except to say your point strikes me as rather valid. How could a prepubescent girl have her breasts removed when so few of them have breasts?
It sounds weird, yeah.
That is what puberty brings with it, menstruation and breasts. But
yeah.
So I will actually ask Matt. I know everybody at Daily Wire, and
Yeah.
I will ask him because it's hard to imagine that he would have said that. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that you're acting in bad faith.
They do say that.
A lot of things are misheard,
Yeah, yeah.
or maybe he misspoke, but it shouldn't be happening. If a kid says to a parent, a 10-year-old, okay, let's take a 10, let's say 12, it doesn't matter. Mom, I'm not a boy, I'm a girl. Mom, I'm not a girl, I'm a boy.
Yep.
The reaction of a sane and decent society is, my darling, nature made you a boy. Or if they believe in God, God made you a boy. Or both, God and nature.
Gotcha. So now if you have somebody who actually has a different gender identity and they're struggling with that, you can just hit them with the good old-fashioned, God made you this way. Oh, you feel miserable and sad all the time? You feel like you can't really feel comfortable the way that you're being recognized socially? Well, God made you that way, bruh. I can tell you right now, if I were ever struggling with like depression or if I were struggling with like gender dysphoria or something, man, that would help so much. Next time when I hit up a good friend of mine and I'm like, hey man, I'm really depressed, maybe they can just be like, well, God made you to be the way that you are, okay? So just go with it, pal. The sane reaction is not big sky man says you a boy. Exactly. And also the sane reaction is not, okay, well, he said he's a girl, now he's a girl, so let's go get surgery, LOL. No, the sane reaction is, okay, why do you feel that way? And then see what happens next.
You are not a girl, you are a boy. And we're going to get you help. Obviously, there are other things going on in your life, which is almost always the case in these kids' lives. And look,
yeah, because there's comorbidities. They always think that the other things are a result of, or the other things caused the gender dysphoria, but it could very well be the other way around. Why is that people with gender dysphoria also can struggle with personality disorders or anxiety or depression? It's not that they have anxiety and depression and that's giving them gender dysphoria. It's that dysphoria, unfortunately, comes with it a lot of comorbidities.
Have not increased. For gay men, it's a fixed. There's a certain percentage of males who will never be attracted to a female. It's sort of fixed in any given generation.
Okay. On the first point, it's interesting to me to hear you say, if a 10-year-old said that, hey, we're going to get you some help, it sounds like you're talking about therapy. Every medical professional I've spoken to about this says the first line here in exploring this is therapy. So it does sound like you agree with the start of the path that has been established.
Yeah, but again, therapy in and of itself, nothing wrong with that. Conversion therapy obviously is a problem.
All of their, you can't even, I believe that there are therapists who could lose their license as a therapist if they say to a girl, I want to help you work out peace with the sex that you are.
Yeah, because that's called conversion therapy. Not I want to help you reach peace. Maybe the treatment will help her reach peace.
That
I'm not aware of that. I have to plead ignorance because I just don't know that. I don't know that. I know lots of therapists. None of them have mentioned that that's a part of the protocol.
All right, ask all the therapists you know.
I will.
And not as a challenge.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious.
Can a therapist say to a 12-year-old, you, in fact, you're a girl, and I'm going to help you work through your acceptance of that?
Fair.
Can a therapist say that?
I'm going to find
that help you accept this thing is where it gets yikesy. Now, if you have assessed somebody and you don't think that they have gender dysphoria, and you say, I don't think that you actually have gender dysphoria, I think you might be struggling right now with depression. You're not going to get in trouble for that. But you might get in trouble, for being like, oh, so you say you're trans, you think you're trans? No, you're this one sex, and I want to help you be okay with that. What are you talking, there's going to be a difference. You can still deny gender dysphoria, but there are going to be guidelines on how you go about doing that.
It is very important for the left not to have power because there's no example in history of the left, not liberals. I always make a distinction between left and liberal, where they have not suppressed dissent. This is my greatest fear is the suppression of free speech because that ends everything. So if a Republican is nominated, I will support him. He turned out to be, in my opinion, a superb president. I'm not a fan of his.
Wow.
He literally threatened free speech so many times. He wanted to arrest people for burning the American flag. He literally said that it would be okay to step past the Constitution if the election was rigged. Don't give me this phony bullshit that you care about freedom of speech or some nonsense, and then you go and unironically vote for the guy that was one of the most anti-free speech presidents America has ever seen, you buffoon.
By the way, it's a big distinction. I wrote 25 years ago. It's in my book, printed in 1998. It's called Adultery in Politicians, an essay I wrote. I don't care if a politician committed adultery. I see no linkage between fidelity and being a good president or a good senator. I am quite consistent on dividing between the macro and the micro in a public figure. King David not only committed adultery, and he's a hero of the Bible, he not only committed adultery, he had the guy killed so he could sleep with his wife.
Okay.
And that's pretty bad.
That may or may not resonate with some in the audience. But so, in other words, you're still...
no, it's not a matter of resonance. I only make this point. No.
Big shout out to God, huh? Woo, okay. Being trans is immoral and disgusting, okay? You are sinning against God. But if you have the guy murdered so that you can fuck his wife, well, there might still be a chance for you left up in God's little heaven, okay? Yeah, true though. You know, I'm starting to resonate with killing my wife's boyfriend now. Uh-oh. Oh no.
Oh, my fight on this issue is not with the left. It's actually with many on the right who think that adultery disqualifies you from being a good leader. So I don't believe most people on the left think if you committed adultery, you can't be a good president.
No, I mean, I certainly don't believe that.
Right.
No.
So ironically, it should resonate with your audience.
Hey, if you had your choice of everybody running on the Republican side right now, if you knew whoever you picked would be president, who would you pick?
So I'm actually happy with a fair number of them, to be honest. I wish Larry Elder had been on the stage. I think the RNC cheated him, and that bothers me. I know Larry, if people heard him and saw him, they would be blown away at his erudition, knowledge, and brilliance. If Larry were president, I would retire from my work.
Okay. But of the ones that are running and made the debate stage.
Yeah, I don't have one single favorite. Okay. I really like virtually every one of them. I don't like Chris Christie.
Wow, that's the one guy I think is sane.
I'm sure you do, because he hates Trump.
Hey, look, Dennis, I'm going to let you go, but one last thing, just because of who you are, I have to have you weigh in on this. When it comes to corned beef, do you go lean, or do you tell them just give me the fat pieces as well?
Yes, actually, it's funny you should ask, because I'm on a pretty rigid diet now, which doesn't allow for carbs, and they want me to have the fat.
Oh, do they?
Yes, fat is the government.
Okay, I don't care anymore about this. Wow, Dennis Prager's, he's a very boring person to listen to, I'm not going to lie. It's quite boring. He's very scattered and sort of gish gallops a lot. And also, I feel like, am I the only person here who feels like Dennis never actually answered or addressed a single point? Am I the only one here who feels like Dennis never actually gave like a straight answer for anything? He was like, well, there's bad luck, and that's why there's lots of, and that's why I'm battling, and that's why that, blah, 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 blah. And last week I went to a wedding. Did I mention, like, he was like watching a politician talk, and then somehow he still managed to just like move the conversation over a little bit, and then just keep on like skeeting his way out of the questions. Except the only question he really answered was the bathroom one, in which case he conceded that it doesn't actually matter your anatomy when it comes to just using a bathroom. Wow. Well, there you guys have it. Dennis Prager versus David Pakman. I think David Pakman did a really good job. Thought this was a really cool conversation. I would have loved to see something get a little more heated and aggressive here, but maybe I'll just save that for the time that I get a chance to debate Dennis Prager myself, okay? Dennis Prager, everybody. I hope you're still alive and awake, because he is just that boring.